Welcome to PAFR's Super Sunday, and today it's time for the AU versus EU race, which is going to be very interesting. Drivers, and we have 10 AU drivers, and it's going to be interesting to see how they all has one driver from Europe and one driver all the way over in Australia. So let's see who got out on track first to start off this fun little event, just as a post-race or a post-season thing before obviously the new Formula One 2022 game comes out. It looks like Whale has gotten out first, but it looks like he's actually let FRL Charlie through, and he is going to be the first man to set a lap so long as he doesn't make any mistakes or invalidate it. So I'm fairly sure Charlie is driving for the EU team in McLaren, which means obviously his teammate Hickett is going to be driving for AU, because that is how all of the drivers are spread out between the teams. But it's interesting because it looks like Charlie is going to be going for a medium compound tyre lap instead of starting off on the softs. And this is a short qualifying session which will be followed by a 25% race. So this is probably just going to be a banker lap, and that's it, because I don't really see any point in qualifying on mediums in short qualifying, because even if you qualify in the top 10, that's the only place you're going to qualify, 10th place. But I guess at least you got to start on the mediums. But anyways, let's see how he goes with this lap. We're now on the run down into turn 1. Let's see how he takes this flat out in 8th gear, and carrying plenty of speed into there now, down into turn 3. A nice heavy braking zone. Looked like he turned in a bit early, gets a bit of wheel spin using 2nd gear out of there. Into turn 4 though, it's pretty decent through there, gets a good enough exit, and making his way down this DRS straight now as we arrive at turn 6. And then into this long right-hander, turn 7, that feels like it just goes on forever and ever. But we're now on to another straight, and this is probably one of the fastest tracks on the calendar. By that I mean you're on the throttle for most of the lap around here, as you can see, flat out through cops using 8th gear. As we now come into the S's, and or Maggots and Beckett's as I should call them, and taking those really, really nicely actually, even on these medium compound tires, hitting all of his apexes, taking plenty of curb to really shorten the run to the line, even in this mid stage of the lap. We're now coming into the final sector, and we're just coming into the final 3 turns of turn 16, 17, and now to round off the lap with turn 18 and the whole 18 turns of the Silverstone circuit. It's going to be a 27.5, and that's a pretty decent time to be doing on the medium compounded tires. We did a lot right in that lap, but I'm sure he's going to have to come in for some soft tires to set an even better lap, because as you can see, it's already been beaten by NLR Felix with those soft tires, just going almost a full second faster. And his teammate Chromad isn't actually able to beat Charlie's time on those mediums, so that's definitely interesting to see that Chromad isn't fast enough to beat Charlie's medium times. You can see it's definitely quite a quick one on mediums, but I definitely think he's going to be going for another lap on softs. And just me to get myself familiar with the teams, Felix is driving for EU, whereas Chromad is driving for the AU, and it looks like lots of people setting their laps now. Pantera sets a 26.9 on the medium tires. That's a very, very quick time. 2/10 off of the provisional pole time so far, and 2/1000s off of Cavodi's at 26.9. So that's an absolutely rapid time to be doing on the medium compound of tires. He's actually been 6 soft runners with that lap. So a very fast lap on those mediums indeed. But let's try and find someone else who's currently on a lap. Looks like Luke is currently on a lap on soft compound tires in his AlphaTauri. Catching up to a bit of traffic though, he's going to get a bit of dirty air coming through that turn 7, which is going to lose him a little bit of time. And it looks like he actually invalidated his first lap. So this is his second lap on these compounded tyres, and not carrying great speed through Copse there. But let's see how he can do into Maggots and Beckett's. Actually touches that red sausage curb. Takes a lot of curb going into that particular portion of Maggots and Beckett's, and just misses that final apex. Now coming onto DRS straight, he's going to get a little bit of slipstream. Is this Haas car going to get out of the way though? As now coming through here, looks like he's understeered quite a bit, invalidated his lap time, and he's instantly come into the pit lane to get some fresh tyres to go for another lap, you'd have to assume. It looks like Lee Wayne King has just started his lap time in the Williams, coming out of turn 4 and into turn 5 now, and onto this nice long DRS straight, which we could see some overtakes during the race. And this race is set to dry, if I'm not mistaken, so zero chance of any wet weather action, which I'm sure a lot of the drivers will be thankful for. A very tight line going into turn 7 there, and just trying to get through that corner as quickly as possible. Now into turn 9, which is known as Copse. Almost went wide there, manages to keep it within the track limits and hasn't invalidated his time. We now come into Maggots and Beckett. Misses that apex on the left, but it hits this one just barely on the right side. So wasn't the cleanest through there, but definitely some time to find in his next lap. It says he set a purple sector too, but this game has been known to have a glitch where it just says you set purple sectors randomly. But we now come into the final 3 turns, turns 16 and 17, which leads us into turn 18 to finish off this lap. Looks like he actually misses that final apex across the line. It's only going to be a 27.81 second off of the provisional pole time so far. And it actually looks like Rishi and Whale doing multiple laps on these medium compounded tyres. Whale is actually improving on his initial medium time, but you'd have to say this probably isn't worth it, because you don't want to be starting on worn medium tyres no matter how far up the grid you are. I think it would be a much better strategy to start on soft tyres, almost going wide there at Copse. Keeps it within the track limits. And now coming into Maggots and Beckett, he hasn't got much grip left in these mediums, and obviously 3-lap-old mediums is a lot different to 3-lap-old mediums in a 50% race scenario, because the tyres wear a lot quicker in 25% races, because the race lengths are actually shorter, just so that you actually have to make a stop. And it looks like he just went wide there. That's caused him to abandon his lap time and also invalidate it. He's going to come into the pit lane for some fresh tyres to go for another lap. Looks like one of the AlphaTauris of Rumax was on a lap, but he has invalidated, so he's just going through Maggots and Beckett's nice and slowly as to not wear the tyres too much. Huge is currently on a lap on mediums in a pretty late stage in the session. If you're going for mediums, only 9 minutes and a half to go. You really want to be looking at the soft compound tyre laps around this stage of the session, but he has decided to go for this medium lap. And let's see how he does, as it looks like Felix and Cavudi both on their out laps, and they're going to be starting their laps quite soon. But we're going to see out this lap with Huge, and set to 104.2 in the middle sector. That's not the fastest, but let's see if he can gain a lot of time in this third sector. It looks like he carried a lot of speed into turn 15 there, took that quite nicely. But now coming into these final 3 turns, I think he might have taken a bit too much sausage curb coming into turn 16, but across the line, it looks like it's going to be a 28.4. That only puts him P13. But it is on medium tyres, so if he can get onto those softs, which are about 8/10 quicker, could be looking at a decent qualifying position in this session. The grid is quite tightly packed. The top 3 are the only ones to dip into the 26s, and one of the top 3 is currently on a lap time. It looks like Felix has abandoned his lap, but Cavudi has just started his. Comes into turn 1 carrying 8th gear through there, as a lot of the drivers seem to be doing, as they clearly have the grip going into there. We now come into turn 4, and getting a nice slingshot line through there, going a bit wide on entry, but to get the best exit possible, gets a little bit of slipstream off for that Mercedes, and now comes into turn 7, or turn 6, I should say. This was turn 7, and once again going for that kind of slingshot line, but using 5th gear out there. He was afraid of the wheel spin. I think he even got a little bit, even though he was using 5th gear. We now come into Cop's corner, and carrying 8th gear through there. Usually want to shift down to 7th to carry the most speed possible, but a lot of drivers seem to be using 8th gear. We now come into Baggett's, and Beckett's hitting that last apex really nicely, but possibly too nicely. Takes too much curb, hits the sausage curbs on the inside, and that's caused him to spin the car and abandon this particular lap time as his teammate negotiating his way past him. But that's caused him to abandon his lap, and Felix, who also had to abandon his lap, has come into the pit lane. He's not going for a second lap. He's just waiting until the end of the session to put on some fresh tyres and go for one final lap. But we'll have to see if that's what he does. Looks like the Ferrari of Jeppy is currently on a lap time. His best so far is a 27.1. He'll be looking to get into the 26s and be in the battle for that pole position. We now come into the final 3 turns. Let's see how well he can take these to end off this lap, as taking that curb quite nicely. Goes a little bit deep into that turn 17, but brings it back at turn 18, improves by 0.2, and that puts him P2. And it looks like P2, 3, and 4 are all separated by 12 1,000ths of a second. That is how close it is between all of these drivers, and a very competitive grid for this Super Sunday AU versus EU event. But plenty of other people currently on laps. New Jersey is on 6 lap old mediums, and you'd have to say this really isn't worth it. But I think I'm starting to realize a lot of these drivers in this event did just do a Super Sunday F2 event before this. So I think a lot of them are going out on the mediums, putting lots of fuel in their car, and just practicing how the F1 car feels compared to the F2 car, making sure they get up to grips with the circuit. And then I think when there's about 3 minutes left, we'll see a lot more people setting actual qualifying laps, as a lot of people haven't set super competitive lap times. But New Jersey, even on this, I guess you could say, race trim, is currently P6 with 27.4. That's a rapid time from him, even though he's not even trying to go for qualifying laps, you'd have to assume. Looks like Hervina just set a lap there, puts him P6. And the AlphaTauri, Cavutti's teammate Whale, qualifies P2 there, 1/10, less than a tenth off of the provisional pole time. But that banker time from Felix has held up very nicely up against all of the other times that are being set. And I'm sure he's going to be happy with that. And there's probably time to find in that lap, so he could be looking quite good for pole position. So it looks like the 2 AlphaTauri drivers, one from the EU, one from the AU, currently P2 and P4. Haas also doing quite nicely for themselves. Looks like Hickett just set a lap time on fairly worn soft compound tyres. That puts them into 27.2s. But it's now the top 5 that have dipped into 26s, and everyone else is on a 27, apart from Hughes down in P18. And Woomax and Eat My Dust haven't yet set a lap time. So 4 minutes left in this session, but it looks like Felix is now on his out lap and getting ready to set what will probably be his final, or at least one of his final, to the absolute maximum. Could be pole or nothing for this man, since if I'm not mistaken, this is a one-off event. So every driver is going to be going full send in this session. Looks like Woomax and Ema Dust have both now set lap times, but they're only in the 28, so you really want to be looking at 27s if you want any sort of a decent qualifying position, because you can see all the way from P6 to P17 are within the same second. So that just goes to show how close this grid is for this event. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how close all the drivers are going to be in the race. Felix just letting the Haas car of Pantera through before he starts his lap. He doesn't want any traffic or dirty air if the driver's ahead. But he's now coming into the final 3 turns, getting ready to start one of his final hot laps of the session. Let's see how fast he can take this car around this circuit. We now come into the final turn to start this qualifying lap. Let's see if he can beat that 26.7. We now come into turn 1. 8th gear through there, almost cutting the corner, trying to carry as much speed as possible. You come into turn 3, heavy braking zone, hit that apex, don't want to touch that red sausage curb on the inside though. A nice slingshot line into turn 4, misses the apex slightly, that's going to lose him a little bit of time, but then hitting that apex up to turn 5, which brings him onto this nice DRS straight. It looks like he accidentally turned his DRS off there. 8 1,000s up on his time, and now into turn 7. Once again, you're looking at a lot of slingshot lines at this circuit, but he's pushed it too much, as usually with a slingshot line you get a lot of wheel spin, and he was not able to control that, pushing too hard, and that's caused him to abandon this lap time. And maybe if he can cool down the tires, recover a bit of his energy, he could try and go for one more lap. His tires will be quite worn after that. It looks like Jeppy has just started his lap time. He's coming down into turn 3 and now turn 4. Once again using that slingshot line, but he's missed that apex. That's going to cost him a lot of time. A very slow line through there, and then he cuts turn 5, and a bit of a waste of a lap there from Jeppy. And I'm not sure if he has enough time to set a final lap, but that was not the best from him. I think he does have time to get to the line, as it looks like Pantera in that Haas car has just set a 26.3, which is 4/10 clear of Felix's 26.7. Pantera really showing everyone what he's made of at this late stage in the qualifying session. It looks like a lot of people are currently on outlaps. Cavudi has just started his lap time, coming into turn 1 now, cutting that nicely but not invalidating his time. Now into turn 3. Let's see how well he takes this. Takes up very nicely, just narrowly missing the red sausage curb, which is exactly what you want. Hitting that apex at turn 4, cutting that as much as possible without touching the yellow sausage curbs on the inside. We now come down into turn 6. Can he hit this apex? You want to go for a bit of a later apex into turn 6, and then turn 7. Go for, once again, a bit of a slingshot line, but control the wheel spin, as we saw with Felix. Quite tricky to do. We are now coming on the run down into Kopp's turn, and let's see how much speed he can take into here. It looked like he turned in a bit too early, lost control of the car there slightly, but he's kept it within the track limits, and he's kept it on track, which is probably most important. We now come into Maggots and Beckett's. Does he hit this final apex? He just drifts wide of it, and that's going to cost him a little bit of time. Is this going to be good enough for pole position? He's only a 10th up on his time, which would currently put him P4 in the session, just ahead of his teammate. We now come into the final sector. This is where he needs to gain all of his time if he wants to put in a competitive lap time. And into turn 16, 17, and the final turn of turn 18. Where is this going to put Cavudi across the line? He's going to qualify P3. He improves by 2/10, but that's not enough for pole position. It is enough to beat Felix, who is currently on a lap time. It looks like he had to abandon his first lap time, but he's going for another one. Where can he qualify? He was on provisional pole for this entire session, but where is he going to be now after this final lap of the session? At 26.3. That puts him 4/100th off of Pantera's pole position time of 26.3, and that time looking like it might stick. Charlie not on the lap. Whale is currently on a lap. He's coming into Maggots to Beckett's, 1/10 down coming out of the first sector. He's not improving. So let's see if he can gain any time in these final 2 sectors. And now onto this DRS straight. Is he up on his time? Yes, he is, but just marginally. 4/100th up on his 26.8. He needs to be improving by about 5/10 per pole position. But let's see what he can do in this final sector. Where can he get this Alfa Romeo of his, as his teammates managed to put him P4? And let's see if Wayo can get anywhere close to that, as he now comes into the final turn, a bit wide there, coming out of turn 17. Across the line, he does not improve, and he's going to finish P7 in this session. Hiccup is currently on a lap. No, he's not. He's coming into the pit lane. Both McLaren's now coming into the pit lane. And that is the end of this qualifying session, as Phased Pantera is going to snatch pole position for this EU versus AU event here at Silverstone with a 26.3, and that's a great lap from him. And for most of the session, Felix was on provisional pole with his 26.7, but obviously a lot of people were able to find improvement with the track evolution, and they were able to get it all the way down to a 26.3, which is absolutely rapid. Felix just 4/100ths off of that pole position, with Charlie being 2/10 behind qualifying P3. Kabudi manages to get P4 to 26.6, and we'll now get to look at the timing sheets and see where everybody else was able to qualify in this session, as it was definitely a tricky one. As you can see, all the way down to P9, we're able to get into those crucial 26s, with almost everyone else being in the 27s. So as you can see, Charlie is going to be lining up on the second row with Kavudi right behind him. New Jersey is going to be beside Hervina. Whale in P7, right beside Jeppy. On the fifth row, we have Luke and Rishi. On the sixth, Vintage Grizz, Hickut, PAFR Aaron, and Lee Wayne King, Happy Kilmore and Huge, Ash and Chromad. And on the last row of the grid, with Eat My Dust not setting a soft compound tire lap, he's going to be starting alongside Woomax for this. Look at the who's done the best session between those two teams. I think Hervina was up there. He is on the EU team. Let's see what team FaZe Pantera is on, first of all. He is actually on the European team, so it looks like EU have gotten pole position for this event. And Felix also for Europe. It's gonna be a front row lockout for Europe. FRL Charlie is on the European team, as we're starting to see a bit of a pattern here. A lot of the European drivers were able to get a good qualifying position, with the top three all being European. And I'm not too sure who was P4, but I'm sure we'll find out once the session starts. Actually, I think Kavudi was P4, and I think he's driving for the AU. He is an Indian driver, so I'm not sure if that would put him on the European team or the AU team, so I'm going to have to assume the AU. And he is the highest placed AU driver up in P4. And we'll get to look at the rest of the grid and teams once this session begins, but all the drivers editing their strategies, making sure, perfecting their setups even, and getting ready for the formation lap to begin, which will set us up for this 25% race. It's going to be an exciting one for sure, but it looks like we will be starting in 2 minutes' time, while the drivers get everything set up for the session. So this is definitely a very high-speed circuit, and coming into turn one, you want to be quite careful, because it's quite easy to lose the rear end, especially if you're trying to go side by side with someone while also keeping your foot fully on the pedal, the accelerator, I should say. So we could see a little bit of carnage into turn one, with a few cheeky dive bombs into turn three. We'll have to see, and I think most people will start to settle in after 1 or 2 laps, and then the DRS will mix it all up on lap 3, giving all of the drivers plenty of opportunities to overtake each other, with, if I'm not mistaken, 2 DRS zones, as I just had to count them in my head there, but 2 DRS zones. That's on the run down into turn 6 in the middle sector, and also on the run down into turn 15 in the third sector, right after Maggots and Beckett's. But it looks like the session will be starting in just 20 seconds time, and we'll be able to see what drivers and what teams have qualified the highest for their team. As we are now getting ready, the drivers' cars on the grid, and getting ready to start the formation lap for this AU versus EU event to begin. And let's see how it all plays out. So obviously we have FaZe Pantera in that Haas car on pole position, and right behind him is EU teammate Felix in the Aston Martin. FRL Charlie also driving for the EU. Kavudi qualifies P. With that title for this Grand Prix. In P5, we have New Jersey, who is also driving for the EU. Hervina driving for the EU. Whale driving for the EU. Yepi, in that Ferrari, is driving for the EU. Luke driving for AU. And Rishi in that Haskar is driving for the AU. So we only have 3 AU drivers in the top 3. And it looks like EU might be dominating this particular event, as obviously Kavudi, Pafr, Luke, and Rishi are the only, I guess you could say, Asian and Australia drivers in the top 10. But that also means that 7 of the Asian Australian drivers will be starting on the medium compound tires. As you can see, the bottom 10 are all on mediums, so that could play into their hands, but we'll have to see if it does, because I think qualifying is going to be quite important, as it's definitely not too tricky to overtake, but it's definitely easy to get caught in a DRS train, which subsequently makes it difficult to overtake. So we'll have to see how well these drivers do, as Pantera coming through the final 2 turns to get ready for the race start. Hopefully he's warmed up his tires into the optimal temperature. It looks like Chromehead and Wumax actually getting disqualified from the formation lap for making contact with each other. But Pantera now getting into his grid slot. As you can see, the car is now stopped, and we're just waiting for Eat My Dust to line up on the grid on the back row for Alpine, if I'm not mistaken. But as you can see, they're lining up on the grid now, and we are getting ready for this AU versus EU Super Sunday PAFR event. Let's see how it all goes. All the drivers are now on the grid, and we're getting ready for this race start. And waiting for the lights. We have 3, 4, 5 red lights. They're gone and we're away. What kind of start is it for our poleman Pantera up against Felix, who doesn't get the best of starts? Charlie tries to go around his outside and does it quite nicely, moves himself up into P2. Felix losing positions, as it now looks like Kavudi's going to have a go around the outside coming into turn 3, and now turn 4 has the inside line. His teammate, his Alfa Romeo teammate Whale, trying to get past Felix too. Felix is getting absolutely rushed by everyone, as he's now fallen down to P4 and under pressure from both Alfa Romeos. Looks like a bit of carnage there in the background. One of the Ferraris has gone off. That's Happy Kilmore now down in P20. Felix and Kavodi still side by side into turn 7, and now on the run down into turn 8 and 9. Kavodi still has that outside line. They're still side by side. I think they've been side by side for half a lap now into Cop's turn. We've seen it end badly before, but Kavodi gets scared off the track there. Doesn't want to make contact. They're still side by side going into Maggots and Beckett's, but Felix is going to have to concede that position. Drops down into P4, and now Whale, the second Alfa Romeo, is going to have a look at battling it out up against Felix, who's going to try and fight back coming into this turn 15 using the slipstream and the ERS to his advantage. Has the inside line for this turn 15. They're going side by side once again, and Whale is just getting a great view of this. It looks like a buddy has the inside line for turn 16. Felix gets a compromise line going through there. This could give Whale a bit of an advantage, but he had nowhere to go going through that turn 17 and 18 to overtake Felix. Into turn 1 now. He's not going to be looking for a move into there. He could look for a dive bomb coming into turn 3, though. We'll have to see if that's exactly what he's going to do. Isn't using any of his ERS, just using the slipstream of Felix ahead of him, but doesn't look like he's going to be going for any moves into turn 3 and 4. So it looks like Charlie and Pantera have already broken the DRS to Kavudi behind, and they're doing pretty decently for themselves. Whale not using too much of his ERS on this particular straight. Looks like a bit of battling going on in the background. Vintage Grizz, who qualified outside the top 10, has moved up into P9 and currently on medium compound tyres. That's pretty decent so far. Luke and Hervina going at it now in turn 7. Luke tried to go for a bit of a switch back there, but Hervina had a nice and tight line and stopped anything like that from happening. Luke, it looks like he's doing a bit of a Verstappen there going into Cobbs, but they don't go side by side, and thankfully both stay on track. Luke looking to go down the inside into Maggots and Beckett's, uses that red sausage curb on the inside, but he can't find a way past going into here. So let's see if he tries to use any of his ERS, and that's exactly what he's going to do with the power of the slipstream, which Hervina sadly doesn't have on New Jersey up ahead of him. Luke is going to be looking to the outside, a bit of wheel banging there between the two drivers. It looks like Hervina has to concede the position going into turn 15. Luke goes wide there, and you see that he gets a 3-second time penalty, and Luke changing his line over and over. It looked like he made a bit more than one move, and that's caused them to collide. And that's a shame to see, an unlucky incident for Hervina there, and it actually forced Luke into the pit lane because of that. I think Luke was actually spun into pit lanes. That's quite comedic, and he's now going to come in for medium tyres, you'd have to assume, which will take him to the end of the Grand Prix. Cavudi has managed to get within the DRS of the drivers ahead. He's got some decent pace, but he's had to use all of his ERS to get here, and Charlie is now very close to the back of Pantera and looking to make that move for P1. You can see the gap between Vintage Grids and New Jersey is quite large, and that's because, well, not only because there was two drivers between Vintage Grids just a few turns before, that's because of the delta between the mediums and the softs, and it looks like Rishi has made a mistake there. I think he's gotten a bit of wheel spin out of turn 7. That's allowed Hughes and Hiccup both on the medium tyres to get past him, move up into P8 and 9. Looks like Hiccup lost control of the car there going through Cops. He's had to concede the position to Hughes, who now moves himself up into P8. Vintage Grid still the lead medium runner. And it looks like Pantera and Charlie battling away. Charlie, with the power of the DRS, which Pantera doesn't have, moves himself up into P1 for McLaren, with Cavudi in the background just patiently waiting to make his move up against these two drivers. But I think he's going to have to close the gap a little bit more. Felix behind is quite a bit behind, but he's now starting to catch up a little bit. Whale sits a 28.6 on lap 4 of this 25% race, and he's currently P5 and has the fastest lap, so pretty decent lap time from him. And that just shows he's got the pace to keep up with these guys. There's a yellow flag in the final sector. It looks like a bit of an incident there, as a lot of people going side by side. Chromad and Ash going side by side. Chromad went around the outside of Ash and now looking to the outside of Aaron, but not able to make that move work. So Chromad currently P11, as it looks like quite a few people have boxed. Chromad now going for the move on Aaron into turn 6, and Chroma's got that move done down the inside. Looks like Pantera has made a mistake. He's gotten a lot of wheel spin out of turn 7. A lot of drivers have been struggling at that particular part of the track, and he's another one that seems to be struggling. They're trying to get his car back on track, and he's gone from battling the lead to now in P14, very far behind P13, as I think Hervina had that spin. Hiccup must have made a mistake somewhere in his lap. Yepi has also made a mistake. Lee Wing King, Luke and Happy Gilmore have all boxed for fresh tyres. Felix has now gotten past Cavudi, moved himself up into P2. There's a lot of action. Eat My Dust has spun at Maggots and Beckett's. Felix and Cavudi are now coming into the pit lane. As you can see, Cavudi really had to slam on the brakes there, but they're going for quite a big undercut, which might not be the play, because you want to be on these soft tyres for as long as possible. Aaron gets a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and back to what I was saying, I think you want to be on the softs for as long as possible, because they are quite durable in these 25% race scenarios, and I would say you probably want to be on these for about 7 laps. So they've gone for quite a bit of undercut. We'll have to see if that works. Looks like Jeppy has come into the pit lane and retired from the session. That's a shame to see from him. A lot of people have boxed, including Felix and Cavudi. Cavudi has actually come out 1.8 seconds behind Felix. That's a pretty decent gap between the two drivers. Luke on the medium tyres, it's a 28.4. There's a lot of action. I'm having trouble keeping up. Cavudi touches that red sausage curve, which is not what you want to do. That's caused him to lose the control of the car a little bit, but he's kept it on track. Whale has actually lost the DRS to Charlie because there was 2 drivers between them just a lap ago, but obviously Cavudi and Felix have now boxed. Remix gets a 3-second time penalty. Eat My Dust currently on the back of Hiccup, not looking for a move into Cobbs. Doesn't carry as much speed as Hiccup, who actually carries a lot of speed into there and just about keeps it within the track limits. It looks like Chromad and Ash are going at it. Ash, with the power of the DRS, is able to get past Charlie now coming in along with New Jersey for some fresh medium tyres. Whale is the only person to continue on. I think this might be the right strategy for Whale, as he's going to be a lot faster towards the end with his fresh mediums, and he's also probably going to be gaining a little bit of time on Cavudi and Felix, since the soft tyres are most likely still faster than the mediums at this stage of the Grand Prix. But I assume just because everyone else has, he's probably going to react either this lap or the next lap. So we'll have to see when he actually does that. The top 6 are the only drivers who haven't boxed. FRL Charlie comes out ahead of Felix, and that is why you want to be on those soft tyres for as long as possible, because Charlie, even though Felix was on the undercut, which was definitely not the right strategy, he's come out behind Charlie, and that is allowed Charlie to maintain the lead. So I think if Wales stays on for 1 or 2 more laps, he could even build the gap to Charlie behind him, but it just depends how hard Charlie is pushing on this outlap, which I'm sure he's pushing nice and hard to try and make the undercut work up against a Whale. But I'm just hoping that Whale stays out, because I'd love to see how that strategy plays out, because I'm sure it would work out quite nicely. But we're going to see now is the moment of truth, and he is going to come into the pit lane for some fresh mediums, absolutely flying into there, and slows it down for the 60 km/h speed limit. And let's see where he comes out relative to FRL Charlie. I think he is going to come out ahead. He was on the softs for the longest, and I think that's played into his hands. As you can see, Fusion Chromad coming in super early on those medium compounded tires, because they know that you want to be on the softs for as long as possible in these 25% race scenarios. So they're going to be taking them for about 6 laps, if not 7 laps. But let's see where Whale now comes out compared to Charlie. And he's going to come out ahead, or is he? It's going to be very close between the 2 drivers, as now at the pit exit. Where is Charlie? It looks like Whale has come out just behind Charlie, and Felix has actually managed to get past Charlie. So it looks like Charlie boxed on just the right lap, as he didn't push the softs too hard, but he also didn't box too early. But Felix is now ahead of him, and in the net lead. Hickut, Charlie's teammate, is currently out in P1, but he's 3.5 seconds ahead of people who have already made their stops, so he's going to be quite far behind this battle. New Jersey and Cavudi battling it out, wheels banging, coming into turn 7. And thankfully, New Jersey went wide there, so it wasn't an unsafe rejoin from Cavudi, and they're both still in this session. Hickut gets himself a 3-second time penalty. That's going to cost him a little bit of time, or a few positions possibly. But we'll have to see where he comes out after his final pit stop, and his first pit stop of the session too. Now coming onto his DRS straight, Charlie has the DRS, and he's using a little bit of his ERS because he wants to get into the lead of this Grand Prix. That's exactly what he's going to do, get ahead of Felix coming into turn 15, move himself up into a P2. It's currently a McLaren 1-2, but obviously Hickut now has to come into the pit lane and box for some fresh soft compound tyres, which he will take to the end of the race. Charlie now begins lap 8. We only have 6 more laps to go, including this lap, so not too much of the race to go. We're past the halfway point, and the drivers are really going to have to start pushing now to make up as many positions as possible. Whale, obviously boxing last, he has got the freshest set of tyres, and that makes a big difference. I keep on going on about it, but the fresher tyres are, the better, because your tyres wear faster in a 25% race compared to a 50 or 100% race, just to make it a little more realistic, so that you do actually have to make a stop. Otherwise, you could probably, if you had the 100% race distant tyre wear rates, you could probably take the softs from lap 1 to lap 13 with ease. So that's why the tyre wear is so important, and why the undercut can really cost you towards the end. We'll have to see if this helps out Whale enough to get past Felix and Charlie. I'm not sure who else was in this battle. I think New Jersey and Cavudi were even towards the first stint, but no longer it seems, as they're now 4.2 seconds off of this battle. A lot of drivers in the background also battling it out. Huge has actually made himself his way all the way up into P7 after qualifying in P18, if I'm not mistaken. He's now making the move on Vintage Grizz into turn 15. His red light is now flashing. Vintage Grizz thinks about it into turn 16, tries to get Huge to go for a bit of a different line. I think he's done exactly that. Coming out turn 18, though, gets a pretty similar exit, but Huge is quite low on the ERS at this stage of the Grand Prix, and these guys are all battling it out for P6. Now coming onto his DRS straight and the run down to turn 6. Looks like Felix is just saving up his ERS and waiting for a later stage in the Grand Prix to go for a move on Charlie, and just trying to pressure Charlie as much as he can to use his ERS so that Felix has a lot more energy towards the end of the race. But as those guys pressure each other, Rishi is started on the softs, now on the mediums. Vintage Grizz was the lead medium runner for most of this race. I don't know where Yush has come out of and where he's found this pace, but he's really moved himself up the grid quite nicely. Currently in P6 and probably gaining on P5 and 4, and Rishi is just in the background. You can see a bit too tight of a line coming into Cops there, and with these medium tires he's going to be quite slow compared to these guys ahead. But Vintage Grizz just cuts that first apex of Maggots and Beckett's too much, and that's caused him to get a 3-second time penalty for extending the track limits. That's going to hurt him quite a bit in this Grand Prix. Looks like Ash, with the power of the DRS over PAFR Luke, is now looking for a move, and Luke for some reason just stays within the slipstream of Aaron, and just was looking to just bump into the back of him. That's probably caused Ash a bit of wing damage there, unless wing damage is turned off, which I think it might be. As we see here, he has not got any visible wing damage. So yeah, I think damage is turned off for this race. As you can see, his wing is perfectly intact. His teammate has now come into pit lane and retired from the session. But a bit of indecisiveness from Luke there. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think that's the first incident we've seen with him. Also getting caught up with Hervina on the run down to turn 16. But Ash now knows to take a bit of a different line, but goes for a bit of a late dive on Luke, and Luke obviously didn't have to leave any space, and that's caused them to make even more contacts. They're really scrapping away here on lap 10, and we only have about 3.5 laps to go in this race, so you can see why he's getting so scrappy. This is for the last points position, and Ash really wants to move himself up in that position. Obviously, Aaron has 8 seconds of time penalties, and I think one of those was 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane. FaZe Pantera, he was looking so good for the race win, currently down in P15 and gets himself a time penalty. Luke is now going to make the move coming into turn 15 on Aaron and move himself up into P9 in this race. And Ash, you can see, went wide there. He cut the track limits, and that's caused him to get another 3-second time penalty, bringing him up to a grand total of 6 seconds. And that is going to lose him a position or two, as Happy Gilmore behind him is going to currently finish ahead of him if things stay as they are. But moving back closer towards the front of the grid, the drivers, especially Whale, is going to be looking for a move quite soon. We only have 2.5 laps to go, and Felix is obviously just waiting and waiting, saving up that ERS, and is probably going to make a move on lap 12. But he's going to be under quite a bit of pressure from Whale. You can see all the drivers are now like less than 3/10 apart, so they're all quite close to each other. It looks like Higa has actually spun at turn 4, or possibly retired on track there, and it looks like FaZe Pantera is fully stopped on track, as you see from the minimap. But yeah, I think Higa just retired on track there. Whale's going to try and pressure Felix into move coming into turn 15, but Felix just turns off his DRS before he gets too close to Charlie. But as you can see there, massive understeer for Whale coming into turn 15. That could be because of the dirty air, but that has caused him to get a 3-second time penalty, so he's no longer going to be battling it out for the win in this race, and he'll just be looking to maintain B3. So it's mainly between Felix and Charlie. And now on lap 12, the penultimate lap of this Grand Prix, we come into turn 3 and now 4, and let's see if Felix is going to go for this move. Is he going to use any of his ERS? He is now on 100% ERS. Some great ERS management we're seeing from Felix here. He's using his ERS, but he just turns it off before the end. He still doesn't want to make the move. He's being very, very patient here on the penultimate lap. He must be waiting for the final lap, the final opportunity. So we'll have to see if that works out for him, because if Charlie has saved up plenty of his ERS, which he has, and he just dumps it all out, if let's say Felix tries to make the move in this next ERS zone on the next lap, and Charlie just dumps out all of his ERS, it's not going to work out for him. So Felix either needs to make it on this next ERS straight, or on the first DRS straight on the very next lap. Let's see if he's going to take this DRS straight, and it looks like he is. He uses the DRS because he's now under quite heavy pressure from Whale behind. He goes down the inside of Charlie coming into turn 15. Charlie tries to hold it around the outside and surprisingly has the grip to do just that, and holds it around the outside of turn 15. Now Whale is looking for a move down the inside into turn 16, and is trying to hold it around the outside of turn 18, but Felix gives him the big squeeze. This has now compromised Felix quite a bit, and he really needs to make a move into this next DRS zone as we now come into turn 3, and he needs to get these next two turns quite right if he wants to be making the move on this next straight. Currently 4 tenths behind, not very close coming into turn 6. He might not have played this to perfection. He probably should have made the move earlier, but this could cost him now. Coming into turn 6, he's definitely not close enough to go for a move, and he only has one more overtaking opportunity, which is going to be coming out of Maggots and Beckett's and on the run down to turn 15. He needs to use all of his ERS now to get as close as possible coming into these next few turns, and let's see if he can do just that with the power of the slipstream, getting nice and close. But he's got Whale right behind him, putting him under very, very heavy pressure. Now coming into Maggots and Beckett's, he's nice and close. He could be looking for this move down into turn 15. Looks like Charlie actually cut that burst apex, probably got a warning from that. Thankfully does not get a 3-second time penalty. It looks like Felix dumping all of his ERS on this final DRS straight of the race, and he's going to go for the inside line, but can Charlie hold it around the outside just like he did last lap? It doesn't look like he can. He doesn't have the grip. Felix has P1, but Charlie is going to send it to the inside, doesn't break late enough. Felix leaves the space, and coming into these final two turns, Charlie goes for a bit of a switchback, but it doesn't work out, so Felix is going to take the win at this AU versus EU event here at Silverstone. And a very exciting race and a great battle between himself and Charlie, who finishes P2 just 2 tenths behind Felix. Whale is going to finish out the podium. So if I'm not mistaken, it's a full AU podium with Felix being from Germany, Charlie being from Britain, and Whale being from Britain also. So it's a full EU podium. And I think that means that the EU team has won this event. Obviously, it's a bit of friendly competition, but I'm sure they're going to be happy with their result. Huge, obviously, getting driver of the day, starting all the way from P18, moving up into the top 6, if I'm not mistaken. We'll get to look at the timing sheets next and see where he did qualify. And there is Felix, and waving the flag for the EU team, winning this particular event. It was a great race from him, and he left it very, very late, but thankfully was able to get close enough into Maggots and Beckett's and make that move work into turn 15. As you can see, New Jersey, who is racing for Red Bull, is also from the EU, and it looks like Kavudi is going to be the highest placed AU driver, finishing P5 with the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Rishi, his teammate, not his Alfa Romeo teammate, but his AU teammate, finishing right behind him. Huge in P7, starting all the way from P16, sorry. PAFR Luke finishes P8, Happy Kilmore in P9, and Leeway King finishes out the points paying position. And just checking now where Happy Kilmore is from. It looks like he is from Australia, so looks like the AU team got P5, 6, 8, 9, and 10, but EU got P1, 2, 3, and 4, and also Huge making a great performance getting into P7. So EU is going to win this event, and a bit of a dominating performance from EU, you'd have to say, with the only disappointment being FaZe Pantera's spin at turn 7. But that is going to be it for this Silverstone event, and we'll have to see if there's any more of these in the coming future. I think there might be. I think there's going to be an F2 event next week, just an hour before this event started. So be on the lookout for that. But I'll see you when I see you, I guess. Hopefully, I'll get to commentate on one or two of those events. But goodbye, everyone.